This deep dive is brought to you by Access Softtech, the premier provider of digital banking solutions. Okay, let's jump straight into something that, well, it really gets us thinking. How can a smaller organization possibly compete? Especially against the absolute giants in their field, particularly now when digital scale seems to rule everything.
Yeah, it feels like an almost impossible question, doesn't it? I mean, think about the financial world for a second. You might have a credit union, say, with 100 million in assets. Sounds like a lot,
But
maybe.
substantial.
But then you look at JP Morgan Chase, there's something like 36,000 times larger
Yeah.
and spending around $17 billion a year just on technology.
Wow, 17 billion.
So how does that smaller institution with, vastly fewer resources, how do they possibly stand a chance in that kind of digital arms race?
It really does sound like David versus Goliath, but Goliath's got, I don't know, unlimited lasers and rockets this time. But hang on, we've seen this kind of dynamic play out before, haven't we? It's not totally unique to banking today.
Oh, absolutely not. Our own work, our observations, they often bring us back to that classic story of IBM.
Right, IBM.
For a long time, their dominance in computing. Well, if you put it in today's terms, it was kind of like taking all the huge banks, Chase, Citi, BofA, Wells Fargo, and just rolling them into one single entity. They were the established leader, no
So,
question.
unquestioned. And yet, despite all that incredible power, all those resources, who ended up really defining the future of computing back then?
Yeah, it wasn't IBM, was it?
No. It was companies like Apple and Microsoft. Started incredibly small, like garage level small, just a few people.
Exactly. And they didn't just compete. They fundamentally shifted the entire landscape, became the new powerhouses.
That pattern, it's just fascinating. And you see it again and again across different industries.
It really is. It's a phenomenon that's been studied quite a bit. You might have heard of that concept, the innovator's dilemma. It helps explain why these really successful established companies often find it so hard to deal with disruptive innovations, even when they kind of see them coming.
So what is it then, fundamentally? Why does being big and successful seem to create this vulnerability, even with all the money and talent they have?
Well, there are a few things that consistently pop up. Large organizations, they often just become slow. Their sheer size, internal processes, how decisions get made, none of it is really built for adapting quickly.
Right. Bureaucracy kicks in.
That, and they also tend to carry these huge legacy systems. Older tech, older infrastructure that's really expensive and difficult to change or integrate with new digital tools. And on top of that, their whole financial setup, their organizational structure, it's all optimized for the way they've always done business, based on market assumptions that might be getting outdated.
Huh. It sounds like they're perfectly designed for the world that existed yesterday, maybe not the one that's emerging tomorrow.
Precisely.
Which is exactly where the smaller, more nimble players find their opening, I guess.
Exactly right. Small companies, by contrast, they just don't have those kinds of constraints. They're not weighed down by legacy tech or, layers of bureaucracy. They have the freedom to experiment, to be agile, to pivot really quickly towards new ideas, new digital approaches, stuff that might seem too risky or maybe just too small scale for the giants to even bother with at first.
Okay, so it's not just about who can throw the most money at technology then?
Not at all. Not in our view, anyway.
Yeah.
The truly brilliant ideas, the ones that can actually be disruptive, conceiving them doesn't have to cost a fortune. The real barrier, the real cost, isn't the price tag of the innovation itself. It's the organizational will, the ability to actually implement it.
So ultimately it really comes down to leadership, right at the top.
We really believe so, yes. It takes leaders who are genuinely willing to challenge the established way of doing things, the paradigm, you could call it, the fundamental way things are done and thought about inside the company. It takes real courage to decide to move in a completely new direction, especially when the current direction has been successful for a long time.
Right, disrupting yourself.
That's the hard part. That's the costly part, not necessarily the initial flash of insight.
So thinking about you, listening to this right now,
Yeah.
why does all this matter? Well, whether you're in finance or retail, healthcare, whatever field, understanding this dynamic helps you spot potential disruptions, doesn't it? It shows you how a small, agile player using digital tools smartly might be positioning itself to completely redefine the rules in your industry.
Yeah, it powerfully illustrates that size isn't automatically destiny in this digital age. It's not a given. And if we accept that brilliant ideas themselves don't always require massive investment, Well, it leaves us with a really crucial question to think about, doesn't it? Which is what specific, tangible actions must leadership take beyond just, intellectually understanding that change is needed? What do they need to do to truly challenge an established way of operating and build the kind of environment where that necessary new direction can actually take hold and, thrive?
Hmm. Something for you to consider. What does that new direction really look like in practice?